noticing the thumbnail of John Pertwee there makes him look something like a David Copperfield type magician. You know, it's like,
Well,
behold my newest trick.
well, well, that's definitely going in the thumbnail. You doing that, and now that I've done it, that's going in there too. We haven't even started the episode yet.
Okay, here we go. Oh.
Hey guys, it's Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films back again with Doctor Who Classic. Last time on Doctor Who Classic, we finished off the War Games with episodes 9 and 10. So, what all happened in that one?
Well, the Time Lords finally intervened.
Yep.
And essentially sent Jamie and Zoe back to their times with only a vague. And now, they didn't really show Jamie with any kind of memory of him, because when Jamie woke up, he was on the battlefield at Culloden and started chasing a redcoat.
Right.
But Zoe had some remark. I can't remember exactly what she said, but she did say something about, I just said goodbye to the Doctor and Jamie or something like that.
Yeah.
Which was kind of odd. And then the Doctor himself is put on trial, and they decide that they're going to essentially force him to regenerate. They're going to exile him on Earth in the 20th century, since that seemed to be where he ended up the most. How convenient. Yeah. But he was, at the end, he was very reluctant, and he said, no, I reject this face and that face. And anyway, last thing we saw, he was spinning around out of control, and then it went blank. So we have no idea what's coming next, other than we already know that John Pertwee is taking over the role.
Yes. So we did not see a regeneration.
No.
Which makes it so nice for modern theories to just sort of stick another Doctor between number 2 and number 3. However, at the time, these are only theories. It is unconfirmed as of yet, I will say.
Well, I would seem to think that the 3 Doctors puts an end to that, because if there was another Doctor between Troughton and Pertwee, wouldn't we have seen him in there? Or her?
I mean...
Or them?
You would think... You would think, but I mean, there's a whole sort of thing, without going too far into the theories. I mean, it's basically like the Time Lords intervene, again, they intervene with themselves, technically, and they would basically take the Doctor for super secret Gallifrey Time Lord missions, then erase the Doctor's memory, so that for the Doctor, he was the second Doctor, then the third Doctor, and nothing in between. So...
Oh, okay.
It's a whole thing that...
But again, seriously, then, why wouldn't he have shown up in the 3 Doctors?
Yeah, just...
Poke a hole in that balloon. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, I guess that theory's collapsed. So, I mean, this is all based on a character, and again, we're getting way off topic now, but this is all based on a character that shows up who claims to be the Doctor, but they don't say where this Doctor is.
Okay.
So... Maybe it's either a Doctor between number 2 and number 3, a Doctor before the first Doctor, which doesn't make sense, or this is a future Doctor that we have yet to regenerate into.
Okay.
The point is, the Doctor regenerated. And now we are going to see the aftermath of a regeneration of the Doctor to be this Doctor.
And which apparently turns the entire universe to color.
Yes. So we are now in 1970 as well. So
yeah, it would. Now this would have been probably too silly, but I think you've only seen The Wizard of Oz once.
It maybe,
but at the beginning, in the Kansas scenes, that's all in black and white. The movie starts out in black and white, actually a sepia tone. And it's only after Dorothy's house gets sucked up into the tornado and she lands in Oz.
Yeah.
When she's still in her house, it's all sepia tone, but she opens the door to go outside and suddenly everything's in Technicolor. That might have been interesting here, to have the Doctor open his eyes and suddenly, well, wait, everything's in color.
That would have been, like, for some reason, he's just been colorblind for the last 2 bodies. That would be very specific and weird, but it would have been funny.
Anyway.
I remember they did that. See, I don't think I've actually sat down and watched The Wizard of Oz in its entirety. I mean, I've seen stuff from it. I pretty much know what happens. I know there was it Oz the Great and Powerful with James Franco? I remember they did that same thing at the beginning, where it was also 4:3, so when it switched over to Oz, the entire movie had to stretch it like triple in size. So,
by the way, footnote, this would have been back about 1983, 1984. Stage production here in the Oklahoma City area. I played the Wizard in The Wizard of Oz. Pay no attention to the man behind that curtain.
Yeah, so. Anywho.
That's back when I have to use to put gray in my hair.
Well. Do we have... I don't think there's any more lead-in to this episode, so I guess we should just get started. Now that we've diverged plenty from what we're talking about, we should get going. I should also say, it is the first episode of a new season, Season 7 here. So because of that, the full-length reaction for this episode is available completely for free to anyone. If you want to go down in the description or the pinned comment, sync up your copy of these 4 episodes of Doctor Who to our full-length reaction, and you can watch along. I think this is the first time we've ever successfully done one of these completely, because the past 6 seasons, either... Like, the first episode, we weren't doing that yet. But then the others, they were either recon episodes, or the story wasn't contained in that one video. But this time, it's all good. We have all 4 episodes. It's all complete. It's all good. You can go watch it and have a good time.
Just a 4-parter.
Just a 4-parter.
Cool.
We've got, I think, several 4-parters coming up here.
Spearhead from space.
Yes.
Okay.
So you can go enjoy that, or not. If you don't want to do that, then just wait, like... I don't know, a second, and the reaction here will start up anyway. So with that all said, let's go ahead and get into this episode of Doctor Who Classic. Here we go.
2 levels, please. Urgent.
This already feels weird. I've been so used to the black and white episodes.
Heatwave in the 1970s, that would have been after I left, but I say that one heat wave we had about 64, 65, the temperature got up to 81.
Oof. Well, at least it was a soft landing.
Face first into the heather.
Yes, ask her to come in.
Ah, the Brigadier.
Yay.
Since UNIT was formed, there have been 2 attempts to invade this planet.
Really?
We were lucky enough to be able to stop them. There was a policy decision not to inform the public.
Do you seriously expect me
Despite
to
the
believe
fact that, like, London was terrorized.
No lies, Miss Shaw.
The London thing could have been explained if ordinary people didn't see the Yetis.
I guess.
Do you want the police told, sir, about the police box? They may want it back.
On no account. I'm coming down there immediately. In the meantime, carry on with the search.
This feels like we've just found 70s S.H.I.E.L.D.
It's hot, sir.
If that is his heart, nurse, what is this?
Why, that's his other heart.
In the X-ray department having a game. You stay with the patient, I'll find
That's
out.
the first time in 7 years they've said that, I think.
Yeah.
I feel like we're going to be explaining a lot of things about the Doctor with this one.
Ah, yes, the old wall phone. Suspicious janitor.
Yeah.
Is that the Daily Chronicle? It is. Well, look, my name's Mullins. I'm a porter at the Cottage Hospital, Ashbridge. I understand you pay for stories. You do? Well, look, there's something very funny happening up here.
He hears one thing about not human blood, and he immediately calls the press.
And here we have Harry Farmer digging these things up and putting them in a burlap sack.
At least that's, like, more substantial that this guy could probably sell.
What about? What's UNIT doing here? Is it true there's a man from space in there?
Nonsense. I don't know where you get these stories.
We heard there's something odd about him.
I know nothing about a man from space.
So is it a slow news day that everyone is here off of this one custodian story?
Have you put a guard on that police box?
Yes, sir. 2 men with orders to keep strangers well
Definitely
away.
on location shooting.
Monroe,
Yeah.
see that institute with live ammunition, will you?
I mean, just
Live ammunition.
the cinematography in general is so different now.
Here,
Yeah.
sir.
Good.
Lethbridge Stewart. My dear
Nice to see you again.
He knows you, sir.
Oh, no. Well, I don't know, though. I think it's rather distinctive, actually. What do you think?
Well, it's a shame we only got, like, one tiny clip of him in Troughton's outfit.
He looks more like Troughton than Troughton looked like Hartnell.
Yeah.
Which is that same kind of rubbery face.
The hair, honestly, looks pretty close, too.
Is that the key to the TARDIS?
He kept that in his shoes.
He's much taller.
Yeah.
Alright, that's just silliness.
Yeah.
That is something Troughton would do, though.
Yeah.
Go away. Start searching.
Well, yeah, you saw that from back there.
Who's there? Who told you to fire, you stupid?
Did you get shot? Ed? Okay.
So, is Liz Shaw going to be the new companion?
I would imagine. Okay. Now, I did think of this before we started. It's like, okay, you know what we're going to have to do is compare this episode to Power of the Daleks in terms of a first story. Well, it's at least zany like the second Doctor was, but this is also immediately like alright, this is kind of weird. You know, but you do have the Brigadier there, and he's a bit more, well, I guess he's doing exactly what Ben and Polly were doing in that episode. Yeah. So there's at least that. And we'll give it the whole episode before we really make a judgment on that. So,
but even so, even the little that we've seen of the Doctor, he seems to have done more in this episode than Troughton did in his first 2 or 3 episodes. Remember, Troughton literally did nothing, which of course was hard for us because we were watching it in animation.
Yeah.
But that makes me wish we could go back and see what Troughton was doing, facially and physically.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is more, to me, this is more engaging than what we saw in Power of the Daleks.
Well, and also, I mean, immediately everything that Pertwee is doing does feel like something Troughton would have done if he were in this hospital and like, oh, I need my shoes, and he starts yelling about that until he finally gets it, and I guess gets the TARDIS key from that.
That's what it looked like. I can't be sure, but it looked like he had the key in his mouth there.
Yeah, so...
But the other thing here is, remember, the Daleks were not introduced in Power of the Daleks until, when? 2nd or 3rd episode, maybe?
Maybe. It might have been the end of the first episode.
Or at least it gave us an idea of it. But here we have this mysterious group of silent men who are somehow trying to kidnap the Doctor.
Yeah.
And you got the whole meteorite thing, and you got the old poacher who's out there who's dug one up, and we're not exactly sure what they are and what they do. But we know Unit is on the... So anyway, I mean, it's just... The story is more engaging than what we saw in the Power of the Daleks, in my opinion.
I think maybe part of it is that you're thrown too far into Power of the Daleks immediately, where it's like, you're immediately like, okay, we've been arrested, we're here, there's a rebellion, there's all this, that, and this, and then at the end there's Daleks, and it's like, well, okay, can the Doctor have a line of dialogue or something? Yeah. Or even Ben and Polly, can they say something about this? Like, this feels like, yes, we've just sort of stumbled into the middle of, Unit and everything, but this episode was sort of focused on either the Brigadier or the Doctor rather than everything else that's going on. So,
by the way, if you haven't noticed, this was my first week at school, and so my voice is incredibly raw.
Yeah.
So I'll try to get back up into my normal range, but it's very, very low this week.
Yeah. So, and I know we constantly rag on Power of the Daleks, but I mean, how could we not here? As a first episode for a Doctor, it makes sense to compare this to Power of the Daleks, although we should say, yes, a part of it is lost because of the animation of that episode. Yeah. Whereas this is, we're seeing Pertwee's actual performance. Yeah. I guess Power of the Daleks episode 1, I think, ends with the Daleks showing up. This one ends with the Doctor getting shot. So there's that. It was it was a little strange, but it at least feels like something the second Doctor would do. Maybe not get shot, but he like all this stuff with racing down the road in a wheelchair. That seems like something the second Doctor would do, whereas the second Doctor didn't get anything that the first Doctor would do, and then didn't get anything for himself to do either. So
grazed him.
He just regenerates again. They do say that there's a bit of a grace period after he regenerates, so he doesn't just die again instantly. The horrors.
Dog factory.
Jeez.
That's not creepy.
You clean up a little bit. Oh my gosh.
Sewing on the hair.
Like, I'm not crazy. This is terrifying to watch.
This can't be Autons.
Can't they, though? I mean, we don't know when they show up. Maybe it's not supposed to look like this. Maybe they've made doll production creepier.
Back in the 60s, I imagine factories did look like that. They don't blink.
Send him in. For sure. I'm not a fool. I don't chase shadows. What you don't understand.
She's got all those degrees. Certainly she's Dr. Shaw.
Possibility that outside your cozy little...
All you have to do is to continue running the factory as though nothing had changed.
He blinked.
That is your sole concern.
He blinked again.
Do you understand?
And again.
I understand. It's possible, but it is dangerous to go near them again. Then what can you do? The units may have embedded themselves in soft ground.
I can't stop watching his eyes now.
Are no longer being received.
It's a plastic man.
Yeah, I think those are Autons. That is not something you want to find in a forest.
All right, show him up.
If that's a
liaison with the regular
set on a soundstage, it's very good.
Don't expect me to salute him.
Highwayman, Section 3 have turned up one of these meteorites.
You think the Doctor's just going to steal that car, paint it yellow, and keep it?
This is like the 9th Doctor, isn't it?
The 8th Doctor found stuff in a hospital.
Yeah.
I think the 11th Doctor did too later.
Toy soldiers playing it. They found the patient.
Oh, that cape is perfect for him.
No.
No hat.
Fedora.
Huh? How about that? Yeah? Yeah, alright. Go with that.
So he knows how to drive like he knows how to fly a helicopter, eh?
Yeah, inexplicably.
There you are, my dear fellow. I expect you're wondering how I found you here.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I have this with me, you see. It homes on the TARDIS.
Well, thank goodness for that.
Yeah. I wasn't too sure about it myself to begin with. It sort of grows on you. Inflexible, you know. Could be useful on the planet Delphon, where they communicate with their eyebrows. By the time your search party arrived, the rest of these things had been collected. Collected and taken somewhere. The question is, where?
Well, I was kind of wondering how the Doctor was going to be involved with the plot, but he's just sort of stumbled his way right in.
I'd say more than 50% of this has been shot on location.
Yeah. Well, I guess when you don't have to design alien planets all the time, and you just have to put a little plastic on some of the actors. Alrighty. And that is part 2.
Well, again, the story is very engaging, even though, yes, the Doctor is only a minor part of it so far.
Yeah. It may also help that this is 4 parts instead of Power of the Daleks being 6, because which is just a general, that's not really anything specific to Power of the Daleks, because we have found most of the time 4-parters are better than longer 6-part episodes. Yeah. So, although there are longer episodes that do work out. So, I'm almost certain that the Doctor's just going to keep that car and repaint it, because we saw he had a car and it was yellow. So I'm trying to think, since that looks eerily similar to the car that he has later on.
Either that or a unit will procure him one.
Yeah.
Since he theoretically stole that one.
Yeah, because I can't remember if his car was 1 row or 2 rows like that, because that one's 2.
Yeah, I think it was a 2 row.
So, yeah. But again, just a good way of the Doctor just sort of stumbling into the plot there.
Now, since we haven't watched that many of Pertwee's stories before, one of the things that I'm noticing about him is that he has, I don't want to call it a speech impediment, but there's something about the way he talks. And it's not a sibilant S, it's almost like he's got a TH in there somehow. So, instead of so, it comes out tho. That's the way it's just every now and then, I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah, so he's definitely also, it's interesting now after watching, all of Troughton, to watch this and be like, well, this does feel, especially there at Unit, it feels a lot like what we've seen from his later episodes that we've seen.
Yeah.
But it also does still very much feel like Troughton as well.
Yeah.
So, I feel like there was a hard difference between the first Doctor and the second Doctor once you get more into the second Doctor's personality. But here, it does feel a bit more of a natural sort of progression here.
Now, one of the things, too, is Troughton never really moved fast. He was active, but it seems like Pertwee is a little more physically capable of, running and doing all this other physical stuff.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's simply because of his build or if he was younger than Patrick Troughton. But again, he's got some of Troughton's physicality, but he's now kind of enhancing that. He's making it more.
Yeah. I feel like Troughton could talk faster.
Yeah.
That's where pretty much all the speed came from, is he would explain something, really fast. Whereas Pertwee is sort of, he could jump around the place if he needed to.
Yeah.
So, and it's also hilarious, by the way, that they bring up his eyebrows too, because that is one of the main things they mentioned with the 12th Doctor. They always just mention Capaldi's eyebrows. And it's like, look at these. They're like attack eyebrows. So, that's just funny to see here. Oof. I forgot they have their handguns.
Something must have frightened him dreadful before he died.
Didn't they say they were in a heat wave, by the way?
Yeah.
You could wear less layers.
Fewer.
Yeah.
Looks like they've distorted one side of the face to make it look creepier.
Stop signaling again.
Stop that row.
Oh no, it killed the dog.
Run.
What yet?
Run. Don't stand around asking questions. Run.
Especially don't ask questions to a dog that can't talk to you. Get a bigger door while you're at it.
Those are many of those houses built hundreds of years ago. The house that we lived in Mildenhall had been built in the 1800s. I think I've told you before. One of the upstairs floors had sagged so that you could literally put a rubber ball on one end of the room and it would roll all the way down to the other.
Recall!
It is kind of nice to have a unit with guns.
Total destruction.
Oof. Oof. Oh. Whoa.
Okay.
He said total destruction. Yeah, the tent opens.
The creature got away into the woods, sir.
It'll be him.
No. Alrighty.
Well, once again, I had said, and although it drew some complaints, the writing for the War Games was really spectacular, and it has kept up in this. Again, there's some silliness in here, but the suspense of what's going on, what's the plan of the Autons, who is the guy who apparently is their leader. We don't know that yet. But again, there's not a second of padding in here. It's just very crisp. The plot moves along. The characterizations are good. I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah. So, and it is interesting. I suppose, in terms of the Doctor himself, like he definitely feels like an extension of the second Doctor. So maybe not quite to he's his own performance quite yet, but even just seeing him in some of these different situations, going in and investigating, even going in and talking to the one guy, seems different. It seems like maybe he's more of the detective Doctor, I guess. So
now, there is one thing, and they may explain this in the last episode, when the Doctor failed to get the TARDIS moving again.
Yeah.
Why didn't he invite Liz and Lethbridge Stewart inside and say, "Look, I told you it's bigger on the inside."
Yeah, it is still bigger on the inside. He just can't move it.
Yeah.
So,
but that would certainly convince her that he is who he says he is.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the interesting thing too, because I think in the Three Doctors, that's the first time that the Brigadier goes inside the TARDIS, because he says like, "Oh, so this is what you've been using unit funding for," and so, but that's the beginning of season 10.
Yeah.
So for some reason, for 3 years, he doesn't go in there. So it's very strange why they don't just go in. Yeah. But and it's also interesting, because this is the first time we're seeing the TARDIS in color, so we can actually see it's a blue box. But I will say it's not the greatest TARDIS model they've ever had, but that also works for she's really run down now. She really can't do anything, and especially once all the smoke and everything kicks up.
I did notice in the very first episode when he stumbled out the door, the whole thing rocked. So obviously it was not weighted, And the fact that they, like again in Marco Polo, that they can pick it up and move it to the laboratory or laboratory.
Yeah.
But I noticed that when he stumbled against the door, the whole thing rocked, which means it's just a prop.
Yeah, so...
I'm not supposed to say that. It's only a model.
Yeah, so...
Camelot.
Now, what's interesting is they're going to have to wrap this up in this last episode, which it honestly does feel like we could probably go for like 1 or 2 more. So I feel like we just sort of got into the whole plot with the Autons.
Yeah. Well, I suspect that because they have the swarm leader, that they will prevent the attack before it starts.
Yeah.
And he does look slightly plastic there.
Yeah. They definitely did something with the makeup there.
Yeah.
Oh, they're gonna bring to life all the presidents.
That's just gooey.
No.
Here it is. Hold on to that, will you?
Just think, the rest of the world is fast asleep.
You're gonna have to get used to this.
What's all this then?
No. it's weird. They don't even work as good mannequins. Like,
Yeah.
if they were just normal mannequins, they'd be too creepy.
Window dummies coming alive, attacking police stations, barracks, communication centers.
The radio's dead as well.
Interestingly, this also happens in the Ninth Doctor's first story.
We can't be sure if this is...
We have been colonizing other planets for 1,000 million years.
Oh my gosh, that's so many years.
Now we have come
1,000 million, wouldn't that be a billion? Oh, that's right. British billion and American billion are different numbers.
You will be spared.
What?
Yes, trust me on that.
Okay. Yep, kept the car. Ah, a classic unit firefight. A minimally effective unit firefight.
A life form perfectly adapted for survival and conquest on this planet. Is that what you look like on your own planet? No. We have no individual identity.
So this thing is a sort of
They're Borg.
No,
collective brain, nervous system.
very gooey Borg.
Humanly speaking, yes.
Well, what's wrong with it?
Oh no, tentacles.
That's a little too goofy. That's not scary.
It's a little much. It's zooming camera angles and oh, they said broken. Interesting when they say they don't really have any form, and then Cthulhu pops out of a box.
Well, I've just realized I don't even own these. I borrowed them from the hospital. And there's that car, too. Yes, so I took to that car. That character.
No,
So-
Doctor. That car must be returned to its owner.
Must it? Yes, I suppose it must.
Boy
Well,
Scout.
there's no reason why you couldn't find me something similar, is there?
Ah.
I mean, it could persuade me to stay, you know.
Oh, very well. By the way, I've just realized. I don't even know your name.
Smith. Dr. John Smith.
Alrighty. That's Spearhead from space.
And pretty much lays down a huge amount of lore for the rest of the entire, 60 years of the history here. He's got
Yeah.
2 hearts,
2 hearts.
alien blood.
Alien blood.
His name is John. Well, he says John Smith. Although, didn't Troughton call himself John Smith at one point?
Yeah, occasionally.
Yeah.
It's his. Whenever he needs the fakest possible name,
Yeah.
he goes with that.
It's literally the most common name in the English language.
Yeah, so that's what he goes with. Although, I've always said that. I think there's one time where the Doctor says like, I should never say my name. Nobody would understand it anyway, because it'd be in Gallifreyan. I always thought, like, it'd be hilarious if he said his name in Gallifreyan, and people were like, so what does that say? John Smith. What do you think I've been calling myself this whole time? So.
There's a similar thing in the original Star Trek series where somebody asks Spock what his real name is, and he simply looks at him and says, "You couldn't pronounce it."
Yeah, so. Of course, there's also, I think, I don't know if this is like a prevailing theory or not, but, the whole thing is that you will never know the Doctor's name. Even though nowadays we're getting more and more of the Doctor's origin, we still don't have the name of the Doctor, which is honestly hilarious. But, well, I was going somewhere with that, and now it's gone.
We'll come back to it.
Yeah. As I was just going through that, I was just like, wait a second, I had a point, and it's completely vanished. No, I don't know.
All right.
I don't know.
Well, I thoroughly enjoyed that.
Yeah.
And this is now, 14 episodes in a row that we've said that for.
Yeah, pretty much. So,
Now, again, the only flaw at all was right there at the end. You know, the face that he made while he was being strangled was mugging.
Yeah.
Rather than, general terror. But I understand. I mean, if, again, this is still, 12, 13, 14-year-olds who are watching this, if you got the doctor being strangled literally by this gigantic alien octopus, if he looked like he was in pain, then that might be very frightening. I can understand that. But
yeah,
he was kind of overdoing it.
Yeah. Which, I mean, because I remember when we watched Terror of the Autons, which is only one season away, there was that one moment where, like, he was being strangled by the telephone cord. And it was very similar to that, actually. Yeah. So, I don't know. I don't know why they keep binding up John Pertwee in these episodes, but yeah, that was... And also just the fact that it's like, yes, the Nestines and everything. And it's like, well, okay, but there's some sort of tentacle monster, but they said they didn't really have a form, so that was weird.
Well, yeah, because I think part of that, they needed some kind of physical thing there, because otherwise he would have just been, grabbing his head as the... now, they could have done something with the effects like they did with the Ice Warriors, where, they distorted the picture. So it would have to have been something like that.
Yeah, the fact that it was just a straight shot, basically, probably made that worse. Also, I just remembered what I was going to say, is that... I don't know why I completely I forgot this, but the theory, again, don't know if this is a prevailing theory, but it could be that at this point the doctors forgot his own name. So it's entirely possible. Like, I'm trying to think... There may be, like, one or two moments where, like, the doctor's name is said, but it's just not heard at all. Like, it's, like, said, like, weirdly off-screen or something, but I can't... I guess there's one or two moments, so I guess he does remember, but that could just be it, is that the doctor is so old he forgot his own name.
Well, it's, it's been 1,000 years, everybody's just called him the Doctor.
Yeah.
It's like a nickname, if you go by your nickname all your life... Like you said, you'd sometimes forget that your name is not just Alex, that it's actually Alexander.
Yeah.
Because you have rarely ever written the name Alexander all the way out.
Yeah. So, I think there was an episode of Batman Beyond where, which that's, in the future, where there's a new Batman and old Bruce Wayne is helping him along. There's, like, one moment where, like, someone, like, gets in Bruce Wayne's mind, and he later says, like, I knew it was a trick all along, that it wasn't my mind talking to me, it was someone else. And he said, because I don't call myself Bruce in my head, I call myself Batman. So he just barely thinks of his own name as Bruce. Yeah. So it could honestly be like that. At this point, he just does not think of his own name.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, I mean, there's definitely... It's definitely different from what we've had. And again, just even at the beginning with the interview with Liz, it honestly feels more like S.H.I.E.L.D. Than Doctor Who, which is fine, but it's very strange, but it is good. Yeah. Like, I did like this. And now it'll be interesting to see, because again, we've eliminated time travel. We can't go into space. We have to bring space to us. So it'll be interesting to see as this keeps going if we're going to be sitting here like, come on, give us something in time and space.
But, it could be, for example, not that they're going to go back to the Himalayas for, the abominable snowmen or anything like that, but there are places all over the world that they can go, theoretically speaking. I mean, UNIT is a United Nations organization. So, going to Asia, going to Australia, going to Antarctica, going to, North and South America, there's plenty of things that they can do. So let's hope that they take advantage of that and not just stay in London or in the, surrounding parts of southern England, or going up to, Scotland and Wales and Ireland. Let's go some places.
Yeah, that could be interesting. I mean, I guess it all just sort of has to do with whatever budget they have, you know?
Yeah.
So, I mean, maybe if they could dress up, you know, England to look like other places, maybe then that could work.
You remember, we were told that those Himalaya scenes were actually filmed in Scotland.
Yeah.
And it was passable. I mean, obviously the Himalayas are much taller than any mountains in Great Britain, but, if, with the right cinematography, you can make any place look like any place.
Yeah.
So let's just hope that they take advantage of that.
Yeah, so it'll be a very interesting time. Now, granted, I'm pretty sure there will be times where the Doctor is allowed to go to another world by, the Time Lords or whatever, or maybe he'll go to an alien ship or something, or if maybe in a rare case he could go back in time. So we just sort of have to wait and see like which episodes those will be. So but yeah, so we're back with Unit and the Brigadier. I mean, this did very much feel like the invasion, especially at the end, go to the factory and have a shootout and stuff, which was good. But I will say I'm trying to think, like, because the Brigadier in this was very much what Ben and Polly were in Power of the Daleks. The person who knows the Doctor and is confused by the, change of faces, but eventually, like, that's how we are now introduced to this new Doctor, sort of from their perspective. But this one, I almost feel like was a bit better than what they did with Ben and Polly. Maybe because the Brigadier was a bit more active in this episode than they were. I mean, I feel like Ben and Polly... Well, first off, Ben and Polly had barely known the Doctor. I mean, honestly, they had been through 2 stories with the first Doctor, which is exactly how much the Brigadier has been through with the second Doctor coming into this. So,
and especially after his second one, when he began to understand who the Doctor was, and the fact he says, look, I know this sounds strange, but he's a man from another planet, and he can travel through time and space, and I've seen all this stuff. So when he then changes, he goes, okay, that's hard to accept, but I'll, it's one more thing that it makes perfect sense in the context of what I already know about him.
And actually, now that I'm thinking about it, the Brigadier had more episodes with the second Doctor than Ben and Polly did with the first Doctor, because they had 2 serials, and they were both 4-parters, so that's 8 episodes. Whereas the Brigadier had The Web of Fear, which was 6 episodes, and then The Invasion, which was 8 episodes. So that's a little weird to think about. But I think maybe part of it too is that, yes, he is a bit more. I mean, not. It's not that he's more accepting or anything, but he does see a lot of weird things now, especially with Unit, and he does know how strange the Doctor can be. And also, I guess just because maybe it works a little bit better here because he's more involved with the plot, like with the Autons, he's investigating, this sort of stuff and the meteorites, and then, it's just that the Doctor happens to make his way into this story.
Now, Ben and Polly had never seen the Daleks before the second Doctor regenerated.
No.
So, that's like you said. So they're going into not only getting a new Doctor, but also something that they were not familiar with, whereas Lethbridge Stewart is more in tune with that.
He's, at the very least, he's more in tune with alien invasions in England. So this is now the 3rd time he's had a shootout with these alien life forms. So we get our new companion, although technically I guess you could say the Brigadier also counts as a companion. But we get Liz Shaw in this one, who honestly, I mean, she feels like a less naive Zoe, honestly. Because that was the thing with Zoe, was that she was very logical, but she was still very young, and some of the naivete, I guess, of the real world, when there were moments like that where I feel like Liz is a lot different than that.
Liz reminds me a lot of Barbara. Of course, very much more educated than Barbara was, but again, still that idea of, listen, I know what goes on in the world. I may be a scientist, but you're talking about little blue-haired or blue-headed men, or blue aliens with 3 heads, whatever she said. So, again, Lethbridge Stewart is kind of filling in the Ian role. So I'm looking forward to seeing the two of them together.
I mean, they're definitely more, I guess, mature than Zoe and Jamie. And then even just going back, I feel like we've had very much younger companions for quite a while. Honestly, actually, yeah, because after, like, Steven was, like, slightly older, at least he was taller, but it was Steven and Dodo, then Ben and Polly, and then Jamie and Victoria, and Jamie and Zoe. So now going over to Liz and the Brigadier, they are a bit more mature. They've been around the block, I guess.
But it does make you wonder if they're going to pull in some kind of, younger type, either male or female, to help along with the younger kids who are watching it.
Yeah, I mean, I know at some point we should get Joe Grant. So, and I think she was a bit on the younger side. So maybe that's it, is that they start bringing her in for more of that younger companion. But I mean, right off the bat, Liz definitely works well with the Doctor.
Yeah.
So that's really good, and helping out with, like, the technology and the experiments and stuff is good.
I also like the fact that she and Lethbridge Stewart don't get along really at the very beginning.
Yeah,
because he's a very military man and she's a scientist, but he's seen some very weird stuff, and she becomes convinced rather quickly that something weird's going on here.
Yeah, definitely. We had the post-regeneration fever, I guess, from the Doctor, which we didn't really get last time. He was pretty much, well, I don't want to say he was all there, but I mean, he pretty much had his wits about him. He just wasn't allowed to use any of his wits in that episode.
Remember, he got into that trunk and said, "Oh, I remember this and I remember that." And he was talking about all that, but that was one of the very few things that they did with Lord, I've already forgotten his name. Troughton. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, you're tired. It's fine. So
been a week.
Yeah. And I guess, see, part of it with Pertwee here is you have to remember is that half of it is, yes, he's sleeping, he's tired, and all that stuff, and the self-induced coma that they talked about. But the other half is he's playing it up so that they sort of, it's like, all right, give him his shoes, and he gets his shoes so he can get the TARDIS key, and then he sneaks out of there and then gets over to Unit and everything so he can get back to the TARDIS. So half of it is, yes, he did just regenerate. He does need to rest. The other half is he needs to get out of there and get back to his TARDIS. Yeah. So,
but it's odd that he doesn't remember that he was being exiled. The fact that he thought he could get away once he got in the TARDIS.
Yeah.
Because they specifically told him, we are going to exile you on Earth, and he was complaining. Troughton was saying, you can't do that to me. Yeah. Don't leave me in one spot.
Well, I think it's not really that he doesn't remember, but I would assume he thinks that he can just get around them. That, maybe he's smart enough that he can immediately go in, activate the TARDIS, and beat them immediately. But that doesn't work. Although they did say that they took away the secret of the TARDIS from his memory, so he can't fix it. Even if he had all the parts, he couldn't fix the TARDIS then and get out of there. So it's like a threefold exile. It's like on the one hand, the TARDIS literally can't move anywhere. They took that power away from the TARDIS, and then they took away the knowledge from him, so he can't even fix it. Yeah. So,
but I do like the fact that they're beginning to establish some continuity. That somebody's saying, here's what we're going to do. Here's what we've had. We'll work that in as much as possible, but we are now going to establish this, this, and this. And we will, again, I've always said, it's like Gene Roddenberry said, this is what Star Trek is going to be about. We're not going to have all this other normal science fiction stuff.
Yeah.
You must adhere to these guidelines in every episode.
Yeah. So, I remember I saw something where, the whole thing that Roddenberry wanted to do was make sure everyone on the ship got along. And apparently he was so adamant about that he would actually yell at the writers about it. It was like, no, they all get along. And I guess morale with the writers and everything was just miserable. And because he was so angry about it.
Yeah.
Which is just hilarious that he's so angry and doesn't get along with people because he wants the cast to get along with each other. So
well, that was his vision of the future: is that all races, and whether they were humanoid or alien, that everybody worked together. They didn't need money. They didn't. It was the United Federation was an organization for peace. And that's what they were supposed to be doing to help bring peace to the galaxy.
Yeah, something that perhaps modern Star Trek is maybe lacking a bit. So, but we digress. Let's see.
Isn't that what we do?
Yes, it is. Anyway,
what do we got here?
The Autons. First appearance of the Autons in this one.
Now, again, the fact that we've seen the Autons before.
Yeah.
When we first saw the doll factory, we probably never would have known that. But as soon as the two of us saw that, it's like, wait a minute, is this the Autons, for heaven's sake?
Yeah. So, because you wouldn't get that just from the meteors landing. Well, and honestly, when they were tracking the meteors, I thought it was just going to be the TARDIS landing, and it is, but I guess it was just that the Time Lords just chucked him in with the meteors specifically. So, so just to hide it, so maybe not to draw too much attention, although Unit found the TARDIS immediately. So yeah. So we did get that doll factory, that creepy doll factory, which I mean, first off, it's very grungy, very dirty, very dark and dank. But then, just the actual making of those dolls was terrifying to watch.
Yeah.
So,
now, of course, they did that partially to make it a lot creepier. But I would suspect a real doll factory doesn't have all that kind of steamwork machinery down in the basement like that.
Yeah.
It's even in 1970, it would have been a lot cleaner in that. But again, they were doing that to make it look more like a like the Nostromo in Aliens,
Yeah.
So make it look creepy, and then again, yes, I don't think people understand that to make a doll, you literally have to puncture the plastic with needles to put the hair on, and cut open the mouth once the plastic has been formed, and slit open the eyes so that they will blink. It's like, yes, that is very creepy. And I doubt a lot of people in the 60s or 70s would have known that that's what was happening.
Yeah. That reminds me, I watched this video one time where it was a mortician answering questions on YouTube. And he was like a really nice guy. He looked exactly like you would think a mortician would. He had, the vest and the tie and and glasses and everything. But it was fascinating to watch. But just when he's talking about, the first thing in the video is oh, I've got some interesting tools here. This one staples mouth shut. And it's like, okay, this is going to be a tough 10 minutes, but
yeah, you never want to go back behind the scenes at a mortuary, at a funeral home.
Oh, there was this one movie called Dead Silent. I watched it in a film studies class in high school, and it's about dolls, and it's a horror movie, so they up the horror. But there's one part, spoiler alert, if you ever want to go see this, but the backstory of why these dolls are coming to life is this old woman ventriloquist from a long time ago. When she died, she wanted to become like her dolls. So the mortician had to specifically do that, and it was creepy as all get out. And this mortician, he did it at his home too. This was just in his basement that he dressed up the bodies, and then the dumb kid goes in there to see the body at night, and there's a thunderstorm. It's all sorts of horrible
cliches. Yeah.
Yeah, it was just, and I was watching this at 2:00 in the afternoon in high school, and it was still terrifying.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure after school that day I was telling you about that movie too. Yeah. It was just it was freaky. So
there's another really weird film, and again, it's been 30-40 years since I've seen it, that I think has a supposed mortician as its main character. The film is called Phantasm, Phantasm, and so if you ever get a chance to watch that, yeah, it's beyond disgustingly gory.
Yeah. So,
but let's get back to Doctor Who.
Well, yeah. Well, and I was also gonna say I can watch I've seen The Exorcist, and it's that felt like a much easier sit than something with dolls and stuff like that. It's oh, girl gets possessed. Okay, I can deal with that. So, but
the book of The Exorcist much better than the film, and the film is brilliant.
Yeah. So, I hear the second movie is awful.
Oh, yes. I've told you this before. In the early 1980s, two very famous film critics wrote a book called The Golden Turkeys, the 50 Worst Films of All Time. And Exorcist II, The Heretic made number 2. After only Plan 9 from Outer Space, which we have seen, and yes, that has to be the literally worst movie of all time.
Yeah.
But I'm also happy to say that the only film that I ever appeared in, I was an extra in it, and I did that one scene with the stuntmen. The Trial of Billy Jack is actually number 3 on the list, behind only Plan 9 from Outer Space and Exorcist II, The Heretic. So
Wow.
I've been in the 3rd worst film of all time.
Wow. What an achievement. I mean, that'd probably be boasting about that too.
I'm semi-famous.
Yeah. Anyway, so that whole scene with making the dolls was very creepy. I will say it's probably good that they didn't lean too hard into that, because I feel like with that and then the automs themselves, they are very disturbing looking.
Yeah.
Like the whole excuse is, oh, they're mannequins, which is how they pass them off. And it's like, oh, they're mannequins. That's what we're making here. But then when you actually see them in the stores, and it's like, well, if these were mannequins, this would be the worst store in the world. No one wants to shop here with these creepy burn victim mannequins. So it's probably for the best. That's probably why they did the tentacles and Pertwee making faces, is to calm the kids down after seeing some of this. Yeah. So, let's see. The Doctor did get new clothes. It was a shame that it was only one scene. It was very quick. It was him stumbling out of the TARDIS with him in Troughton's outfit.
And I don't remember that.
Yeah, it was right at the beginning. It was very quick. It was less than 5 seconds long. Where I think it's because you were looking at the TARDIS wobbling around. But he was wearing Troughton's outfit, and that's when he face plants. Yeah. But after that, he's in the...
Yeah, I think that's kind of interesting that the movie... did you say it's with the 8th Doctor?
Yes.
That they basically paid homage to that, or homage, in that he wakes up in the hospital and scrounges around and finds this very Victorian outfit because it's Halloween, and he puts it on and goes about his business.
Well, not even Halloween. I think it was like New Year's.
Oh,
They had a costume party in New Year's for some reason.
Right,
but it's pretty much the exact same way. Of course, here they have to show this really fancy looking gentleman just so Pertwee can get that really fancy outfit too. And then they do that again with the 11th Doctor, where he ends up in a hospital. But for that episode, he mainly wears David Tennant's outfit, and then he just happens to be at a hospital, and he's like, I need some good new clothes, so he just assembles that whole thing with the tweed jacket and everything. Right. So, and not only did the Doctor get new clothes, he got a new car that he just completely stole, which is hilarious. Which is also interesting that, we're talking about, with this series, reducing budget, that's why he's exiled on Earth and everything. But that means they have 2 cars. The cars that the Doctor stole in this episode, and the car that he will now get, presumably, in the next episode from the Brigadier.
It makes you wonder if in the credits there, there's something like, thanks to so-and-so's used car lot for the classic cars of Essex.
Yeah.
That loaned the use of them.
Or if the actor that played that, the well-dressed man that the Doctor took the clothes from, if that is just his car. He was hired on, which is... Because otherwise, there's no purpose to that character. Yeah. He just sort of is there for the Doctor to get clothes and a car.
Now, was he also a doctor, or was he they said he's a bigwig, so I don't know if he was a donor or if he was chief of medicine or something like that.
Yeah. I think he was some sort of... He had to be some sort of medical personnel because he was being taken to see the Doctor specifically. So, so Pertwee's got his outfit. I mean, it's definitely a lot different because, the first 2, I mean, they had very basic outfits, honestly. Just, just a nice thing with a nice jacket, and there are differences between the first Doctor's outfit and the second Doctor's. This is far different from those two. You know, it's this nice suit with a good tie, and it even comes with a cape and everything. So, so they definitely went for something different with his design.
Now, again, we've talked about this before when we went through our, going through the all of the different doctors. I've mentioned that I don't think he will keep this exact outfit. Remember, I said this is very much the late 60s, early 70s Carnaby Street look, where a lot of men were dressing with the velvet jackets and the lace at the cuffs and the ruffle shirts and things like that. So at some point in the next couple of episodes, he may say, I borrowed this stuff, but I really should be getting my own wardrobe. So, like getting the new car, where he says, well, I have to give that one back, but surely you can find me another one like it. So that maybe he'll say, you know what, I really need some new clothes, and he'll just go with that look.
Yeah. It is always interesting when the Doctor gets new clothes, just to see, because they have to write in the Doctor's mentality of picking clothes and everything. So it's just sort of an interesting, and then it's always interesting to just see where the Doctor gets their clothes. We're also at 15% battery, so we ought to...
Okay, let's wrap this up.
2 hours and 20... We've been talking a long time. Let's see. Oh, goodness, we still have a decent amount of notes. There was the whole thing with the key. It's interesting how they say that the key only works for the Doctor specifically. Because I guess, I don't know, I feel like there have been episodes where, like, Jamie has unlocked the TARDIS, but I can't think of any.
I can't remember if he unlocked it or if it was already unlocked and he just went inside.
Maybe. It could have been something like that. I guess it's also possible that maybe the TARDIS recognizes Jamie.
Yeah.
So, like, the TARDIS knows specifically who to allow in. Yeah. So, obviously, the Doctor and then whoever is the companion. So, it's entirely possible it just didn't know the Brigadier yet. So... let's see. But he did get into the TARDIS, tried to take off, that didn't work, and is not going to work, so there is at least that. But it is interesting, that he doesn't invite them into the TARDIS just to see, because, I mean, there have also been plenty of episodes where, it'll cut into the TARDIS and the Doctor is working on something in there, so, the Doctor is going to have this full, laboratory and everything, but he technically doesn't need that because he has his own laboratory in the TARDIS. So it's just kind of interesting. Maybe he wants to move out of the TARDIS a little bit because the temptation to fly away is just too great, even if he can't do it. So he needs to focus. So he needs to be outside. Let's see. Replacing all of the government leaders with plastic was very interesting. I was thinking, it was like, when they show all of those, plastic figures, like, oh man, they're all going to be replaced. But then obviously it's like, well, most of those U.S. presidents you don't need, so...
Yeah, but Nixon was there, and Nixon was president in 1970.
Yeah, so...
And I can't remember, this is my British history slipping away from me. I do not remember who the prime minister was. If it was... Macmillan or Heath. So I remember the Beatles had that song Taxman, and they were talking about how Mr. Heath was taking too much of their money. I mean, there's a vague reference in Taxman to Prime Minister Heath. So anyway, again, one of those figures could have been a British leader, and I've simply forgotten who it was.
Yeah, so...
But yeah, Nixon was definitely one of them.
Yeah.
And a very good likeness, too. Again, makes me wonder, did they get permission to film in Madame Tussauds? Because there is one in London.
Yeah, possible. Let's see. There was the attack, which gave us our unit shootout. I say that jokingly, but it was very similar, the same location and everything with the invasion or the Web of Fear and stuff. So that was interesting. And then we also had the Doctor's weapon, basically, to use against them, which was interesting. Which, again, also reminds me a bit of the invasion when they had the thing to induce emotions on the Cybermen. Yeah. Here, it's to... I could melt the Autons.
Yeah, to scramble its brain, I think.
Yeah, so it is one of those things, though, that, obviously... because the Doctor has just regenerated and, lost everything in his pockets, presumably, it does make you think like, oh, okay, so he has this device. Probably later down the line he'll get a sonic screwdriver though. So
she mentioned something about the electroshock therapy. That was something that was very controversial at that time, where they would take mental patients and put the electrodes literally on the side of their head and shoot electricity through their brains to try to get them to calm down. So that was kind of an odd reference there.
Yeah. Don't they do that in Return to Oz?
Possibly.
I think I've never seen Return to Oz. I've seen like YouTube videos that talk about it where like Dorothy is given electroshock therapy. So yeah,
that's also part of both the play and the movie and of course the original novel of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, where they're trying to take these mental patients and unscramble their brains, but in many instances really only do more damage than good. So
yeah. And then we had the tentacles, which again, like, it almost makes me wonder if like they thought the Autons were too creepy, so they did that moment to sort of liven things up a bit. I don't know, but that was very specific. It was very goofy, and I know sometimes we talk about like goofier Trout moments, and they're like, was that necessary? And people in the comments say, those parts are great. That was specifically very goofy, though, with him getting strangled and everything.
Again, makes you wonder. They said, what are we going to do? Oh, well, we got this giant octopus thing laying around. Let's paint it green. But it wasn't so much the strangling of him. It was his face. He was doing all what we call mugging, trying to get a laugh from the audience.
Yeah.
So, and if they had just played that straight, it wouldn't have bothered me at all.
Yeah, so... the last thing that I wrote down are the terms of the Doctor staying with Unit, which is interesting. Which, I mean, it's good that he immediately, as soon as he's exiled, he stumbles across Unit, because that's probably the best place to be.
Yeah.
So...
Well, even if he had landed somewhere else, ultimately he would have sought them out, because that's really the only people on Earth that he could trust.
Yeah.
That he already knew.
Yeah.
Although I guess he could go back and look for Ben and Polly and
Ian
and Barbara.
Yeah, they are the only ones. Oh, and Dodo. She should still be on Earth. Yeah. So, yeah, everyone else is on some weird alien planet or in Troy.
Jamie went back to the Highlands.
Yeah. So, yeah, it would be interesting if we had cameos by then, but I'm going to say we're probably not going to have cameos by then. Yeah. So, yeah. But, yeah. Honestly, a solid start.
Yes.
So
yes, truly enjoyed it.
Yeah, and it is definitely better than Power of the Daleks. And
one last thing.
Yes.
On Thursday, my first day back at school with the students, right around noontime, I went on to my email because I was expecting to see the latest episode of Doctor Who that I could post, and I kept thinking, why didn't Alex post this? And then I went, it's Thursday. It's not Monday.
It's not Monday.
I know it's my first day back with students, but I thought it was Monday, and I kept waiting for it. I thought, I'm going to have to talk to him because he didn't send me the link.
Yeah, so you're very tired.
I'm very tired.
Maybe things will be better next week. So, with all that being said, we're Alex and Dad from 7th Hour Films, and we will see you guys next week. Take care. Alright guys, thanks for watching the video. If you want to watch more of our Doctor Who classic reactions, there is a playlist on screen. There's also another playlist for all of my modern Doctor Who reactions. There's also a subscribe button and a Patreon button on screen, as well as other links in the description if you want to go check out any of those. See you guys later.